Chapter 10. Alex. When I tramped to the dining room wearing spiked boots, I wasn't sure I'd fall on my face, but Jonas kept close. Stopping before entering, I stood in front of the closed door before entering, wringing my hands and gathering my courage. Jonas opened the door, and the tables had been positioned where the guests could see the stage, as well as who was entering. Some men were facing forward when I spied the elegance of the room with large chandeliers hung spaciously apart. I had never had the opportunity to eat in there, since it had been redesigned by Christian. He had thrown away and discarded everything except the expensive lights. I'd helped design those lighting fixtures when Max had asked for my help when he'd bought this vessel. I knew I should walk inside the room, but I delayed because my legs were weak. My knees were ready to give out standing in those booths. However, Jonas reached for my hand with the look I'd imagined a dead man would wear at his looming death. He wasn't going to his death, I was. I had to make a move without Jonas's help because of Christian. You aren't providing the courage I need to get through this, Jonas. I don't need you looking as if you're the one wearing this ridiculous outfit. Jonas chuckled. How can you find something funny with what you're getting ready to do? If I don't see this as what it is, then I won't be able to make it. So take that mortician's expression off your face. No one has died yet. Jonas reached for my robe to close it, which Christian hadn't instructed me to do. Leave it alone, I said, looking at his hand ready to help. Christian wants it open and I don't want to enrage him. Jonas furrowed his brow and tightened his fist. It is what it is. I think you said that once, I reminded him, or was it someone else who stated the obvious? I stepped inside the room to see the dishes had been cleared away, tables were removed, and men in shorts, polo shirts, smoking cigars sitting in large recliners with drinks in their hands, with waiters refreshing their drinks as if they were waiting for a movie to begin. Come in, Alexandra. This is the former Alex Blackstone, Christian said, pointing Max out if for some reason I had missed him or forgotten I'd been his one and only love. I watched Max smile. It was as irresistible as ever. He loved to disarm men and women with his gorgeous mouth full of polished teeth. But I had to resist and pretend that he meant nothing to me. The men sitting close to Max whispered to the next person in a chair to their right when he didn't react on seeing me. Oh, forgive me, everyone. This is Alexandra, my wife, and as I stated, once known as Mrs. Alex Blackstone. I stood there like a frightened lamb in the middle of a pack of wolves. I watched for a reaction from Max, but he sat gazing away, smoking a cigar, and took another drink from his brandy snifter after swirling it around. He behaved as if he'd seen me for the first time, and I was just another woman he'd come across in his travels. In his bed. Hell no, I wasn't any woman. I had been his wife until recently, and if he can act so detached, then I can be what Christian had bought me for in the first place. I took a step forward to greet Christian. He gave me an air kiss on the cheek, then he said, Alex, take off that robe. His voice strong, cold and detached. My fingers froze and trembled. I couldn't. He stepped closer, faced me and raised his eyebrow. I brought my friends and business partners to see my queen. And he reached and tore the wrap from my shoulders like a magician showing off a box containing doves that he would disperse to the waiting crowd. I was nothing to him but an inanimate object like his ship or the furniture he could replace at the nod of his head. Then Christian turned to face his puzzled audience and looked directly at Max. They said you can judge a king by his queen. Max placed his cigar down, took a sip of his liquor and offered Christian a curious smile, and nodded once without words crossing his lips. Christian rushed back to me. Jonas had taken residence to the side behind a column, watching everything and everyone. Christian glared at Jonas, then he said to me, turn around. I did as I was told, and looked to Jonas to hide my shame. He lowered his eyes. Christian then stripped me of the sheer gown and leather bodice I'd used to cover my breasts, leaving me with only my black thigh-high boots, a leather choker and cuffs. My heart beat loudly, and then I detached myself from the moment and thought about my life before this. I knew then what some meant when they'd said they remembered the good old days. With all the turmoil in my life and what I'd endured knowing Max and Jonas, that was indeed the good old days. To make the best of this moment, I raised my head as if I wasn't affected by this humiliation. My pubic hairs had been shaven, my clit was pronounced like a tiny cock sandwiched in a bun. I saw Max salivate and swallow unlike the other men who stared at me like wolves ready to pounce on my body and devour all of me. Then there were groans of pleasure, touching of their covered cocks. This group of degenerate men wasn't here to hide their sexual pleasures, but to bask in it. At Christian's wave of his hand, I turned around for them, and on one buttock was a tattoo of a large red rose for Max's eyes only. There were a few men who came late to the party, and when they spotted Max, recognized me, mumbled, they turned around and left. I stood naked, and for the first time I knew Max couldn't help me, because I had indeed placed myself in this position, but I had no choice, and if he didn't see I was helpless, then I was lost and I didn't know where I'd end up. I couldn't tolerate being a piece of meat for Christian, even if Max could tolerate it. When he'd finished with me, he'd throw me physically to the dogs. Would Max be there to pick up the pieces that would be left? Deep down I felt this would be it. Christian wouldn't be as cruel as I'd imagined. Show off your wife and let her go to her room broken. But Christian wanted more than to break me and Max when I examined the gleam in his eyes. There would be more to come, and when he threatened to give me to the highest bidder, I didn't believe him. My rationalizations were, at least he didn't put me up for the highest bid. Why would he? He had all the money he needed. But then the evening was still young, and my thinking was narrow. Christian's eyes focused on Max, whose eyes eventually locked with mine. Max showed no emotions, because he had said he didn't want anyone to know what he'd been thinking. The only one who would have an inkling to the extent of his outrage would have been Jonas, but when I glanced over at Jonas, everything Jonas felt had shown on his face, and that wasn't good. With the Blackstone boys, Jonas had been the sensitive one, the twin who'd fall for a pretty woman if she'd fuck him and married him the next day. He didn't care if she loved him or not, he just needed some amount of closeness and someone to say, "I love you, Jonas." She didn't have to mean it. He just wanted the appearance of love. Then Christian raised his voice to a level I'd not heard before. Unlike the soft, shy voice he'd offered me when I'd first met him, this time he barked. "This is the most sought-after woman in the bondage community, and now I own her." I could have shouted. I wanted to shout, "Fuck you," and run away, but Christian was the master of this ship and he owned the captain. Hell, he was a captain too, therefore he was the law on the seas as long as we were at least 24 miles from shore, and we were well beyond that. Whatever he told his men to do, they were obligated to obey or mutiny, and so far everyone obeyed him, because he paid them well, as he'd said to me. He even said he has his captain's license, and he's responsible for everything and everyone aboard this vessel, and he had enough money to get him out of every crime he thought he wanted to commit. Who thinks about potential crimes and then how to cover them up? A psychopath. That's who I was married to now, a sociopath. My skin prickled, my nipples peaked when Christian passed his palms over them when he placed a leather strap through the choker, and then he said, "Place your hands behind your back." And I did what he wanted without a word. I could have cried, and ran over to Max and Jonas and begged for help. I raised my head, and when Christian offered me his hand, I laid my palm inside, and he clutched my shaky hand in his. Then someone opened the curtains, offering the moonlight where this time you could see everything. My nipples taut and hard from the nipple clamps, my small waist and full hips, and my bald pussy. The black leather knee-high boots eliciting groans from the men and heavy breathing. I stepped and stood on a round dais at Christian's instructions. He'd placed the O-ring with the nipple clamps on me, and I looked like a slave, but it wasn't private for Max, but for a group of men salivating and sweating where they couldn't wait for the bids to begin. Christian turned around to his audience and said, "I put this woman on a pedestal. I placed a lot of value on her." I didn't know where he was going with this until he said, "But everything has its price. How much do you want to pay for her for one night?" The men looked at each other, and they couldn't believe what they were hearing. They began mumbling, looking over to Max, who didn't want to play that game of games with Christian. They couldn't believe it was for one night, considering what the starting bid had been asked. Or maybe they did believe it when someone shouted, 1 million. I tightened my stomach because it wasn't Max's voice. I would have recognized it. 1 million. Alex doesn't even pick up her whip for 1 million. Ask me, I know, Christian said, which had been a lie. Some of us don't want the others to know how badly you want this woman, and just so you don't incur the wrath of your neighbors, I offer you another chance to bid on her, Christian said, aiming a wicked smile in my direction, then looking into the audience. Then he offered them a chance for a secret bid while I stood shackled. I tell you what, since you feel intimidated by Maximilian, you can have a secret bid and I'll throw in something extra. I won't know who won, only the captain will know who gets Alex for the night. I don't want to know because I love her, Christian said. Fuck you, Christian, the first thought. I know some of you think that's an insane way of showing your affection. Not all, because some of us are like minds and you belong to my tribe. In my world I like to share. Then one of the porters passed around a piece of paper and pen, and they signed their names and wrote the amount. One more thing. Whoever wins her for the night, you have to send the money directly to my account as soon as I accept your bid. My accountant will handle that part of the business transaction. There will be no lags between the time I receive the money, then Alex is yours for that one night only. Jonas stepped out from the columns and from the dark corner. Am I allowed to make a bid on your wife? He glanced at me. I held my breath. From what I knew, Jonas didn't have the kind of money that Christian wanted. Only Max, and there would be no way Max would allow Christian to bankrupt him. We had children, and he'd die before he disinherited them. After all, he'd worked his life to give me and our children something just in case he died, or had been kidnapped by someone trying to take everything we had. And that appeared to be Christian's main purpose for doing this to me and Max. Christian turned with a jerk and then said, Can you afford this woman? My pride and joy? I don't think you can. Since you're here and got a good look at the merchandise, I'm a man of my word. Who knows, you could have saved every dime you've ever made. I believe if a man wants something bad enough, he will give away the store to get it. Let's see how big your store is. Give my steward a pen and paper, Christian said, his voice pealing with laughter. The waiter rushed to hand Jonas what he'd requested. Jonas looked Christian in the eyes. I didn't ask how much it would cost me. I just have to bid higher than the rest, is that correct? Christian nodded. I have a pen, Jonas said with his head raised after scribbling something on the paper and handing it to the young man. You said a secret bid, and you wanted the money in your account. That's all you need to know. It will be in your account if my bid is the highest, Jonas added. You must want this woman badly. Remember, it's just for one night and she's my wife. Christian aimed a satisfied closed smile at Jonas. He'd completely forgotten about Max, but I hadn't. Jonas responded to the wife comment. It appeared you may have forgotten that significant piece of fact when you offered her up to these men, but I haven't, Jonas said, looking down at him with hooded eyes and a tight jaw. After this dangerous and perverted stunt you pulled, Alex may not want you anymore. And Jonas turned and strode away when Christian ordered someone to give me a robe. Did you hear that, dude? He's planning on giving us competition, the confident guy said, wearing white linen slacks and a pink linen shirt with the slick-back black hair and beard. Then he turned to his friends, offering them a loud laugh, and they followed him with more infectious laughter of their own. Nevertheless, Christian wasn't laughing. He said to the few men left, It's not you he's aiming to give competition to, it's me and you, Maximilian. Chapter 11. Max. Christian reached for my bid, glanced down at it after he'd opened all the slips of papers. I wrote, fuck you. I saw his face turn crimsoned, and he spun around to the men waiting with bated breath to see who'd take my wife to their cabin tonight to do who knows what with her. It was a gamble I had to take, and I didn't feel good about it, but Christians would have had everything Jonas and I'd owned in this world, and he wouldn't have stopped there. He would have our balls next, and he would still have possession of Alex. Perhaps my children too. I knew all these men, and under different circumstances, they'd never cross me, but I was getting out of the business of being a billionaire in their minds, and I was no longer the richest man in the world. I didn't own anything but gold, and that was for my children and Alex if she'd forgive me, which was now in doubt. So Maximilian, you want to play this game with me? I will sell her over and over until you don't recognize her, or until you turn over all your wealth to me. He'd confirmed what I'd known all along. Why the fuck are you doing this, Christian? I thought you were better than that. I used to be, when my sister was alive. Remember her? She killed herself over you when you left her for Alexandra. I think you have everything wrong. You want to control the narrative, but as long as I know the truth and have her diary, that will never happen. She killed herself because I'd found out about your incestuous relationship with her and broke it off, I said, trying to make him understand one thing. I wasn't going to allow him to convince his sick mind of that lie. He had been passing the lie around so long, until he believed it. You are the liar, he barked. I loved my sister, but not in that way. I didn't want to get into that now. I wanted to get off this yacht to plan my next move before Jonas cocked everything up. He'd been a dreamer all his life and believed men could be reasoned with. He didn't understand a man like Christian, but I knew them well. Before meeting Alex, I had been one. You should have told her you loved her as a sister, and you shouldn't have taken your relationship to another level when she'd never had a man in her bed except you. For some reason she killed herself the same way all your wives had. She jumped over the side of one of your yachts in international waters. Well, that's what was reported. How convenient and coincidental, I added. Taking a step away from him to leave, he grabbed my arm. Where are you going, Maximilian? Take your hands off me, or you will be joining your sister. I'm getting off this hellish yacht now. And leave your wife? He questioned, slanting his head to the side. Precisely, she is my wife and not yours. And she will never be yours, and that's your problem. Alex will never let you win this dangerous game you're playing. He stood holding on to the doorway leading outside, his eyes narrowed, his brow furrowed. He bit his bottom lip, drawing a faint trickle of blood. Now what time is the helicopter leaving? He waved his hand to dismiss me, and I headed in the direction of the copter along with the remaining men passing by us who dared stay and bid on my wife, and had lost the bid to, I suspect, my brother. I stepped out to the heliport, and some of the men were already aboard. I spotted Jonas passing Christian, so I waited for him. His mouth tight, his eyes narrowed, and he was breathing hard. Why the fuck did you bet all your money? I questioned. He stopped me by raising his hand. Why the fuck didn't you do it? Someone had to, and it looks like. I'm betting on Alex. She isn't going to let Christian win, I said. This is not a game you should be playing with your life and Alex's. What the fuck is wrong with you, Max? Are you that cold where you would let a man have your wife just like that? And he even paraded her nakedness before men, and even me. If you haven't checked, another man does have my wife if you want to be technical. And he's getting more money so he can bring me down, and you just contributed to my demise and my children's. I noticed you didn't include Alex or me in that scenario. That's because you two have been pushing me out for years. I shouldn't have said that. I can't believe you said a thing like that, Jonas whispered over the sounds of the vessel and helicopter. He was right. I could see the hurt in his eyes, but I couldn't show him how much I loved Alex and him. He had to believe he alone and Alex had to get out of this shitstorm, without me placing our entire lives in jeopardy. He had to have a reason to fight Christian because I couldn't now. This had been a weary day, and if I had shown my weakness, Christian may have seen Alex as being worthless and gotten rid of her, but now he was able to make money on her as well as satisfy his lust and sexual appetite for his weird fetish. I'm leaving while I still can, Jonas, and I suggest you do the same. Not without Alex. You'd turn your back on her? I've never known you to be this hard when it came to Alex. When I didn't reply or lower my eyes in shame, Jonas said, "Send all my money you've been holding for me now. Transfer it now. And sell my gold, put that into paper and send it to Christian's bank immediately because she's mine for one night." He handed me the information where to deposit the money. I took the paper and we locked eyes. I offered Jonas a set of cold, uncaring glances. The look I'd given to some businessmen who knew my reputation and what would happen when they'd crossed me in business. Some smart men understood and got out of my way. The others didn't have the good senses to see what I'd been capable of. A predator always believed he was the best at his game, and never saw another predator better than himself. Therefore, they hung around and got eaten up. It had been hard to understand Christian because he didn't follow any rules. I needed time. Jonas shook his head. He couldn't see into my heart, and thank goodness, because he would have done something stupid. He loved Alex in what way I didn't know. But what he didn't know when he glared at me with scorn was that I loved her more. I would and have done bad things to protect her. I could have killed Christian at that moment when I had to watch that man degrade and debase my beautiful wife, the mother of my children. However, I was a predator who waited and watched and calculated my moves. Knowing Alex would never belong to anyone but me, and can never really be anyone's wife but mine, was my reason for telling Christian to go fuck himself. My loving brother with the kind heart may have been saving Alex for me instead of himself. That was just like Jonas. He was giving all he had to save Alex for one night. But what about the next time, and the next day when that lunatic will come up with something else? Christian had been playing the long game, and Jonas didn't understand that. It will take time, and I have to get off this fucking vessel to clear my head before I lose my mind and do something drastic. Turning in a circle with his hands folded into a fist, Jonas stepped forward as if he wanted to hit me, but he didn't. Instead, he shouted, "I don't know how you can live with yourself, Max. Try telling your children what you did to get their mother back." And he turned and trudged away. When I climbed into the helicopter, the last guy was climbing aboard, and when he was sat, the pilot pushed a few buttons, and the helicopter took off headed for Manhattan. This was a plush helicopter I'd thrown in with this yacht. It had been refurbished, and I recognized it. The last guy to step aboard had been one of the billionaires who, on seeing Alex nude and glancing at me, left with two of his friends, but made the mistake of returning. Yet I discovered from Jonas he'd handed in his bid earlier, but didn't want me to know. However, he and the others who'd lost that bid remained for a reason, and it would cost them dearly. "So, Maximilian, what do you think about Christian?" I smiled. Why was he asking about Christian? Christian isn't someone I'd consider doing business with, because for one, you don't try to shame your adversary, especially if you don't know your enemy. How so? And he laughed because he never understood what I'd said. I knew this man to be a fool, as well as his friend sitting next to him. It had to do with business when I thought about his decisions. These were men who didn't understand the world of business. They used their own money to buy their way into the business world, thinking that's all it took. They understood nothing. They were lucky then, however, now their luck had run out. I offered them a closed smile and added, "If you don't understand me, then you won't appreciate how I'd used my business connections to buy up your companies and used your own money to control those companies. I suspect it's too late now to teach you because you won't need that information any longer, and especially in these few minutes." "What do you mean?" One of the men said, "We won't need the knowledge now. We can always learn from someone as smart as you, Maximilian." I raised an eyebrow. "I mean Mr. Blackstone." The friend turned to me. "You know they call you the incredible Mr. Blackstone. But I don't see anything incredible about you." He scoffed. No, I didn't know. Was it my wife Alex who passed that rumor around? I questioned, knowing the answer to that question. You must mean Christian's wife. My lips quivered, my eye twitched. I had held out longer than I thought, but that last comment got to me. Excuse me. I need to talk to the pilot. I promised him I'd help pilot this thing because after all I was the one who sold it to Christian, I said. If you knew anything about me, you'd know I'm capable of doing the most unbelievable things. I smirked. We heard how you survived a plane crash in the Florida swamps and walked miles, didn't stop to get to a hospital. Yes, I know, I lived it. Piloting my own plane. Now it's time to relieve the pilot. I rose from the luxurious leather seating, and from watching a widescreen flat TV when everyone had reached for a drink. Your life is in my hands going forward, I announced to the confused passengers who suddenly gulped down their glasses of liquor. They looked at each other, and I strutted down the narrow passage, opened and closed the door to the cockpit before I stepped forward and sat next to the pilot. The pilot could have handled this copter alone, because it was a twin-engine all-weather one. But I had reasons for offering to co-pilot this marvelous machine. Jeff narrowed his eyes, not expecting me. Can I help you, Mr. Blackstone? Jeff said. I slid in seamlessly near Jeff. He'd been the pilot for my helicopter before I'd sold my ship to Christian, and he'd stayed on the job. That was one of the conditions when I sold it to that unethical pirate who had his sights on everything I'd possessed, including my wife. I'd specified that no one would be replaced. Otherwise, the contract would be void. However, my lawyers waited until later to tell me everyone in my fleet of planes had been given a pink slip, as they'd said. Everyone except Jeff. Has it been long since you've been in the pilot's seat, Mr. Blackstone? I heard about the crash you had. Oh, you know how I am. I'm always practicing and learning, and nothing like a crash will prevent me from doing what need to be done. It shouldn't take long. We should be landing in Manhattan, at Mr. Christian's high-rise. Do you have your limo waiting? If not, he has many on call, Jeff said with a warm smile. Just lie back and get some rest. You look like you need it. I'll take over because I hear Christian works his crew more hours than necessary, I added. You got that right, Mr. Blackstone. He's a slave driver, but I don't want to bad-mouth the person who's controlling my paycheck, especially since you're out of that business. Well, Jeff, you never know. I might need a loyal pilot at one of my remaining businesses. Keep yourself open to change. Jeff smiled, laid his head back and fell asleep. Jeff was still asleep when I veered off the route. He had been unconscious when I pulled him from the wreckage and to safety. Jeff suffered from a mild concussion when the ambulance drove him to the hospital, after the signal I'd sent out that we were in trouble. I had been unable to rescue the other men, because I didn't have the strength to pull them to safety. They unfortunately went up with the helicopter when it caught on fire, and I can't say I will miss any of them. Chapter 12. Alex. I thought this was over. This hellish nightmare of standing in front of a group of strangers, and one happened to be Max because you could say he was a stranger now. Then there was Jonas. The expression Jonas wore had been troubling to me, if not to him. Jonas had been hurt beyond anything I'd seen before. I don't think he'd mourned his wife's death more than he mourned the death of the woman he once knew and admired, Alex Blackstone. Max, however, appeared to take it in stride. Maybe he realized that everyone dies, one way or the other, as they continue to live until they can't recognize that young, innocent person any longer. It must have happened to him and Jonas, and now it's happened to me. Nothing could have hurt me more than to see the cold look on Max's face. That face stoic, warmth missing, not even anger. Even that expression of emotion would have let me know how he felt about me. Yet I did know. He despised me and all that had brought me here. I was the wife and Jonas was his blood. He hated me more than he'd ever hated Jonas. Where are you going? Christian said with a stern voice. You aren't finished, and besides I want to look at my wife before another man has a chance to molest you. "I'm not your wife," I howled at him. That got him going, and he marched over to me, grabbed my hair and pulled my head back. I glared up at him. "Get your hands off of me. I'm not your wife, but something you want to sell to the highest bidder. I'm a commodity and treat me as such. I can bring in either your sick pleasure or money. I don't know which it is, but I don't think you need money, therefore it must be your sickness that's driving you." Christian released my hair and he stepped back. "They said you were a pistol, and I didn't believe it. Anyone else would have thrown themselves over that spacious terrace I gave you. Like your other wives." He narrowed his glance at me. I knew then I'd gotten to him, and I was on to something. This was what I'd intended to do, to keep him away from me. Or it could have been one of my other possibilities. "If you thought you were being clever by mentioning my wives, then you don't know me. They are my ex-wives and you're my wife now. So get used to the idea and we will get along." He had been wrong about me. I didn't want to get along with him, ever. I wanted my chance to get out of his reach without too much damage to my physical self. Christian had been mumbling about something, and he'd pulled me from my thoughts. "Did you see how Maximilian walked away without putting a bid in for you? This is the note he wrote me." I snatched it from his hand and opened the paper. Yeah, that's just like Max. He wasn't about to let anyone back him into a corner, or hold his feet to the fire, especially an ex-wife, or someone he thought to be too young to control himself or me. "Take these things off me," I demanded. He smiled and strode around and freed me from the bondage choker and cuffs. I closed the cloak on my shoulders to hide my naked ass, and rushed in the direction of the door, planning on hiding away in my stateroom. He stopped me in my tracks. When I turned, his smile grew wide and closed. "Just where are you going? It appears you forgot who you are. You're the property of one of my crew members." He strode in front of me, placed the paper with the highest bid in my hand. "I thought the other men could afford you, but surprised they couldn't. Just imagined a crew member in my midst with all that money, and soon it will be mine." Maybe I'd been wrong about him. He had to be a greedy little fuck if he amassed the kind of money Jonas had spoken about. Maybe it was the money that turned him on. I laughed at the bid put forth by the others who left early. I glanced up at Christian with a smirk before he said, "They didn't want to be part of buying and selling you. Afraid of Maximilian, I guess." "As you can see, I'm not," Christian proudly declared. "Well, you should be," I mumbled. And I turned away. "What did you say?" Christian questioned. Turning to face Christian, I repeated, "You should be afraid of Max. Do you know what you've done?" "Well, I guess you don't. With all your money and your people surrounding you, you must think you're impervious to what he's capable of doing to you. You have no idea what you've brought on yourself. He should have showed me what he'd been capable of today, but he didn't. I will never give him a second chance. He had an opportunity to take you with him, but he didn't say a word. He could have paid for you and saved all that embarrassment, but he didn't. He knew me, and I think he's afraid of me. He doesn't know what it takes to win anymore. I'm a man in my 20s and he's 40-something. He's lost a step." Christian puffed out his chest and allowed a wide, arrogant smile play on his lips. "If you believe that, then you're the fool. You're not even close to his age, you don't have experience like him dealing with men. You're the one who has a lot to learn." "Well, Maximilian Blackstone won't be teaching me anything anytime soon. Now let me escort my wife to her cabin, and you can wait there until the man who paid an outrageous sum for your beautiful ass comes to collect. And a beautiful one it is." He placed his palm on my butt, and I shivered and pulled away. "Tell me who paid for me." "Not the captain. He's a disgusting-looking man who stared at me all night." "No, it wasn't him. And I must say, some people will surprise you. It was that steward. The one who brought you your breakfast in the mornings. It appeared he comes from a very rich family. Old money, I think, because you can't accumulate that kind of money from just a salary or that quick." He glanced down at his phone and smiled, then looked at me and reached for my hand, and I marched ahead of him until he caught my arm. I wonder if he got that money from playing the stock market, or maybe he did. Nevertheless, it's mine now, and I'm not turning anything down because that works for me. Christian, that greedy young dick, rubbed his hands together as if he was ready to sit down for his favorite meal. He once more made an attempt at reaching for my hand, and this time he squeezed it, wrapped his fingers around my palm to prevent me from pulling away. "Stop it. You're hurting me," I bellowed, and what was left of the crew took notice immediately, but carried on cleaning the dining room. He headed in the direction of the elevators, with me in tow, mumbling about Jonas, and questioning where he could have gotten the money. He tried to fit the pieces together in his mind. I'm afraid he may do that if he has time to check his employment papers. How and why did Jonas give up all his wealth for one night with me? There's no way I can repay him, and Max will not forgive this. Why do I care what Max thinks or feels? I don't. And I'll never worry again about how Max feels, because he left me to claw my way out of a sealed coffin that Christian had nailed and buried. When I reached my stateroom, Christian opened the door and pushed me inside. He grasped the few things I wore to cover my exposed flesh and tore the robe from my body. His eyes shimmered in the dim light, and I heard his breath hitch. What am I going to do now? This could be disastrous for me and Jonas. Am I the only one who can see this train veering off the tracks?